Hi, this is Anthony Douglas for the case study for special education for school leaders. In the summary and in the story that we're given, we understand that there's a student named Carl who's out of control and he's emotionally disturbed according to the IEP and according to the case study. And there's a teacher who would ask that he be removed from the classroom due to the fact that he's out of control and disturbing the class, not only for the teacher herself, but also other students in the educational process. The problem is the IEP does not allow that to happen, nor is the teacher willing to be patient. And it seems like, from the information we're given, to wait for the IEP to be resolved or another IEP to be reevaluated or given, or the team to get together to figure out what they need to do to make it right. We have an upset child, an upset teacher, and an IEP teacher who's pretty much stuck in between, in the middle, making sure that the IEP is being followed, as well as the child is receiving services and being served in the least restrictive environment possible. So there's several things in here where we look at the problem and we need to analyze and figure out what it is that the child needs, what is the IEP provides, as well as the support for the parent, the student, and the teacher. We know that the student's been identified as being emotionally disturbed. We also know and we're indicated that there's a home life situation where there's divorce going on within the family. We understand that the student is lacking in support emotionally in school, whether it be through a social worker, a counselor, or a teacher within the school. There's a lack of support there. We understand that the parent is seeking support and doesn't have any, not only provided through the community services, but as well as through the school. And there's a real lack of support and information provided to the classroom teacher who's dealing with a student on a day-to-day basis. With that being known and understood, we have to understand that there has to be a plan put in place. Now, the plan that the teacher wants is to be an overnight, take him out of my room now. However, due to the IEP and the protection of that child, that can't happen. An IEP has to be reevaluated and rewritten in order for this to happen. The child is supposed to be and provided the services by the school within the least restrictive environment possible. That environment in this situation is the regular classroom with the teacher. In order to get to that plan, there may be several we go through. Maybe plan A, plan B, and then finally get to plan C where it works, depending on the child, the student, as well as what is the least restrictive environment possible for the child to be served in that school environment. Several things have to be looked at. The strengths and weaknesses of the child, the strengths and weaknesses of the teacher, the strengths and weaknesses of the classroom. This can be done through observation through the regular ed teacher, the special education teacher, a school psychologist, and even the parent can have an input in this as well because they are part of the IEP team. The whole time, the main idea and the purpose must be to keep that child in the least restrictive environment possible to make sure that they're being served correctly and appropriately for their needs. In order to make sure that we resolve this and we resolve the issues and make sure that the student is successful, not only do we have to worry about the student Carl in this situation, being successful, but the student on the IEP is to also make sure the students in the regular classroom or the classroom he or she's put in is also have the opportunity to be successful. Each of them require and are allowed to have equal opportunity when it comes to learning opportunities. They're able to have access to the same curriculum, the same information provided as any other classroom in this scenario, especially one that's being pulled out or set aside. I found it was interesting that the teacher wanted Carl to be withdrawn from the classroom. And if that was the case, he wouldn't be provided the same opportunity for an education as the other student. We have to look at the IEP and make sure the IEP promotes the fact that he's going to be successful and the students that he is in the classroom with are also successful. The whole time in promoting this success of all students is making sure that there's some development emotionally, development academically, development socially, and that way we're promoting the whole child's success and not just one area. To make sure take back and read this correctly, I was frustrated as I read this. I was frustrated with the team for not understanding what Carl's needs really were, for not understanding what Carl's family's needs really were, and for not understanding what the teacher's needs really were. I was very frustrated with the team as a whole. Maybe knowing Carl's whole story, they could have been more apt to make sure Carl was receiving the services he deserved, making sure the services provided were not only helping Carl be successful academically, but also emotionally and socially, going through the situation he's going through at home as well as in the classroom. I was very frustrated with the teacher to come and demand that Carl be taken out of his class. It didn't really give any information as to what the teacher tried to do to make sure Carl was successful, other than he wasn't acting right, other than he was throwing a fit and bothering other students. What steps did the teacher take to make sure Carl was being serviced, make sure Carl was being given the opportunity to receive an education, making sure Carl was being given the services to act appropriately? So the frustration was really there with the team and with the teacher more than anything. I really felt sorry for the parent. The parent was stuck. The parent really didn't know what to do, how to handle it, didn't have the services provided for them, not only from the school, but from the community on where to go and how to reach out to make sure Carl was being served as well as themselves. I really felt hopeful for Carl. I really felt hopeful for the student. Maybe this was a turning point where the team could come together and make sure Carl was served. I really felt sorry for him at first, but now I feel hopeful that the team will come together and make sure things are made right so that he's successful not only emotionally, but also academically. In looking at standard two, I find it interesting that the essential element is to consider in meeting this standard is stress on the need to develop and sustain effective learning environment and the culture, the effective learning and teaching environment, and to communicate and model behavior that conveys that all students have a promise when placed in a culture that ensures inclusive behavior, reachable, teachable, and capable. And so, in order to come up with that plan, in order to make sure we're doing what's right, there's some things we need to do. First thing we need to do is make sure there's a safe environment for not only Carl, the teachers, and the other students. Make sure that they're safe, they're learning, and make sure it's the least restrictive environment for all parties involved. This will help them all be successful and make sure the effective learning is taking place. The well-being of the student. I think this goes on just beyond emotional. I think it goes on between the instructional capacity of curriculum, the instructional capacity of expectations, and instructional capacity of rigor. What is it we as teachers or administrators can do to make sure the instructional capacity is enhanced with the curriculum, the expectations, and the rigor to make sure that Carl and the other students all receive the education they deserve? The last section of this is to make sure that to enhance the instructional capacity of not only Carl, but the other students. In doing so, we're going to meet the needs of the students where they are emotionally and educationally. We'll also need to make sure that the instruction and curriculum, they accommodate the instruction to make sure they meet the needs at the learning level of not just Carl, but the instructional level of all the students involved. In doing so, not only will Carl's success be in behavior, but it'll also be in the academic area as well. Is Carl's behavior causing his academic failure, or is the academic failure causing the behavior? Could have one and the both, but we need to make sure as a team that we embrace both and that we embrace Carl's whole story to make sure that we're instructing him and instructing the whole class and making sure that they're all getting their needs met and serviced to the ability that we can to enhance and enable them to be better learners and for us to be better educators.